And thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be among all these brilliant people that I see in this panel. So it's a pleasure to be here. I would introduce myself first very quickly. So I'm coming from CEN and CENELEC, the European Standardization Organization. I see some familiar faces here that we work together actually very much on AI standardization. So basically, CEN and CENELEC are the two out of the three officially recognized European standardization organization that they can have the task from the European Commission to deliver a certain category of European standards that are called harmonized standards, and eventually to basically provide to kind of like make the regulation into an actionable plan or the requirements that are digestible and implementable basically. So the Commission sets basically what to achieve, what goals should be achieved, and then the standards are one of the ways to say that how to achieve it. Of course, the standards become very popular for SMEs, and the way it works is that basically, we have a technical committee that includes so many different types of stakeholders. And maybe when I come to that specifically about AI, what is very special about standardization in the field of AI is that I started my standardization journey basically on devices that was maybe the environment of the use, the misuse, everything was very, very much more transparent. So I started my standardization journey basically on household appliances or low voltage directive, general safety products, where we knew who are the stakeholders, who are going to use it, and in which environment they are going to be used. So there were certain, let's say, limits to how we develop these standards. And recently, of course, I'm more and more involved in the digital area. We see that there is a shift in the dynamic of the standardization, especially when it comes to AI. Now we are facing that we need more stakeholders because the environment that the AI is going to be used, and by different people, by different age, we need to consider all these things. And now we are more and more going into the discussion that we need fundamental rights around the table. We don't only rely on certain degree of knowledge from engineers, like we used to do it for the standardization of a fridge. Now we are shifting towards a new dynamic that we need involvement of different expertise. We need involvement of different societal stakeholders, for example, to be there. And I would like to emphasize on the fact that the standardization, the way it works is that we try to have as many variety as possible. They are consensus based. So we put a lot of effort to bring together as many expertise as possible to make sure that we cover all those aspects or the gaps while we develop the standards. It's not only related to AI, it's for any other standardization activities that we cover, for hundreds and hundreds of topics that we cover in CEN and CENELEC. But the particularity for AI is that the environment of the use, the risks that it has, and towards the citizens, for example. As a mother of a toddler, of course, there are so many things that about AI that I would like, that it will be safe, that controllable in a way, reliable. And I believe that what we do with standards these days is that to make as much as possible those things that are set in the regulation into something that is implementable. And in the panel, I see two people that they are heavily involved in the standardization. We work together in CEN and CENELEC. So that was my very short introduction into what I do, what we do with regards to AI standardization, and also the development of one very key document, which is the AI trustworthiness that we are developing right now in CEN and CENELEC. That was my short introduction. Sorry, Robert, we don't hear you.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And what I would like is to have an introduction where you also go to address briefly the questions. So what role do you think standards will play? And what are the issues where you see problems in the link between making a nice standard and plugging it into effective transboundary governance, for an emerging technology?
Thanks a lot. Yes, sure. Well, basically, what we do for standardization, as I mentioned, is that Sen and Senelec, there are two types of standards we could deliver. One is that basically market driven. So it means that there is a need, there is a signal from the market that we need to deliver certain standards, but also policy driven. It means that there is a regulation in place, like now we have for EU AI Act, and now the high-risk AI system, for example, this is the subject that we have this task to deliver the standards. So the regulation itself might not be, can be a complex piece of legislation. So the EU AI Act, for example, but what we are doing is that with all these experts that they are coming together, they basically translate in a way the requirements and how to make it actionable. And how does that translate into real life? How SMEs or how industries or how the people that they put high-risk care system into their, let's say, into their environment, they need to make sure that this is safe, this is not risking health or fundamental rights. So the standards we are putting in place is basically addressing certain aspects. For example, I will go a little bit into details about what we have today is about the risk assessment, conformity assessment, quality management system, for example, AI transparency, cybersecurity aspects. And these are the things that right now we are addressing into within one of our technical committees, which is Joint Technical Committee 21. Then you mentioned about that what are the challenges we have. I think for AI, we really understood many things, that the shift that I mentioned about the dynamic that we have today. There might be some parts of expertise. So first, involve more and go beyond what we used to do in the past to bring together the stakeholders. So the stakeholders, the variety of stakeholders, and go beyond what we used to do was one of the things that we had to consider to be more, to be as much as possible inclusive within the framework of the European standardization principles that we had. And actually on that, we also, under the technical committee, we kind of kicked off a task group on inclusiveness, because we saw the need and we saw the how important it is that we go beyond what we usually do. So one of the challenges is basically to have access to bring together, and the second part was the time pressure. So we are under tremendous time pressure by, we would like the standards to be ready, to be used by the time that the high-risk AI systems to be, they are becoming mandatory. Meaning that our experts that they are drafting the standards, they are under, they need to work harder, they need to fill in the gaps from the point of expertise. There are some areas that maybe we do not have immediately that knowledge, or it's actually under development. So there are these kind of challenges, not only related to AI. With all these new, for quantum technologies, we see the same trend. So we're trying to bring together the expertise, and I think this should be a little bit of a collective effort, that we need to raise the awareness, we need to put the standardization in kind of a priority, that all the good knowledge that comes from research institute, that comes from universities, that not being disappeared and come to the standardization. Also, I would like to touch upon that for topics like AI, it's very important that we have the civil societies, NGOs also to be involved. By default, the Annex 3 organizations, which is ANEC, ETUC in Europe basically, and ECOS, are invited. They are observers in Sen and Senec technical committees. Their representation, which is the... basically, we would like to go beyond that, but knowing the time pressure, the number of meetings, they sometimes miss and lack the funding. So we are trying to find the tools by the help of the Commission, but we do need additional funding for those experts, because at the end of the day, the standardization is heavily relying on the volunteer work. It means that the funding would be key. First, awareness, raising it, standardization as a priority, and also provide the funding to bring the right expertise around the table that could help with the development of these standards. And another thing that we are discussing very heavily with the Commission is that how we can bring all all those good, let's say, European projects that are ongoing, the outcome of that into something meaningful and a content to be contributed in the technical work that we have. So these are basically the gaps, and these are the things that we see today as we are going forward with the new technologies, with the new areas. And for AI particularly, I think the involvement of the civil society is very important to cover those aspects when it comes to, under the EU AI Act, when it comes to it should not harm the fundamental rights, for example. So those would be the topics that we are now discussing heavily internally, and also with the European Commission, how we can close those gaps and how we can, moving forward, how we can do better for other topics that they may come as well.